All right, welcome in, everybody. Looks like I'm having some trouble going live on Twitter, but we will see if that works a little bit or not. But Ross is having a little trouble with his camera. He'll be on here in a second. Going to a little bit of a recap of what happened last week. Ross had a nice positive week, almost out of the hole that he dug himself on his birthday weekend, and I added a little bit to my total as well on the spread. Like we kind of talked about, everything's kind of stabilized a little bit, and the lines are starting to get pretty accurate, and so it's harder to pick. I think the one thing hey Ross, how's it going? One thing that I've noticed is that for the most part, I'm getting most of the picks that I put on the board correct, but the amounts don't always help me. So it seems like the bigger bet, the full bets, I get wrong more often, and then I'm getting the blue chip bets right more often. So it's like the more of the bets are hitting, but I'm not getting the right amounts right. But anyway, Ross, how are you doing this morning? And you're muted.
There we go.
Yeah, all right.
Technical difficulties all over the place this morning, but we're here, and I'm ready to go. We're ready to make some money. I need to get in the plus column this week. So close, and I feel good about it.
Yeah, were you at even coming into your birthday weekend, and then you went down? I mean, it's just, yeah, you gotta get out of the hole, man. That's going to be important here. I've been slowly adding. I'll explain in the prize picks segment. I made a full 5 single game bet on Thursday night. So if you watch the pregame show, I was live in the stadium. I made all 5 bets, and I hit 4 out of 5. So I'm counting that on my total because why not? Mm-hmm. And what's funny is the one bet I didn't get was Carson Wentz interception. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. That's the one I felt the best about. I thought that was absolutely sure going to happen. He put a couple in the Bears' way, but just, they didn't take advantage of it. And, if the Bears would have jumped up early on the Commanders, like they should have, had a lot of goal to go situations, didn't score any points in those, I think that bet would have hit. But, sometimes you got to just play the percentages and live with the fact that you're not going to hit them all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So let's get into the board. Interesting board this week. I think there's a couple fun places to go, but why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to start us off. Big line in LA this week with the Carolina Panthers and the Rams, but I'm looking more at that over-under spread. I'm going to put a blue chip on the over 41.5. Listen, I know PJ Walker is probably starting quarterback today. I just think that this is a get right game for the Rams, very similar to one that they had a couple weeks ago when they played a bad football team. And I think that the Rams alone can probably put up 25, 30 points in this football game and a couple of garbage touchdowns on the other side. I just think that we're going to be able to get the over, even though it's probably going to be a blowout. But I'm going to go for over 41.5 in this game.
I like it. I do think it'll probably be a blowout. The only concern that you might have is some sort of like Matt Rule fired bounce, but I mean, they're traveling across the country. Like you say, it's a get right game for the Rams. They have not looked very good. A lot of people are writing their death certificate at this point already. A little early for that for me, for the Rams, because they are a talented team. Got plenty of talent, maybe a little bit of a hangover at some point. They got to figure that out. But I'm going to go to the first game on the board here. San Francisco, 4.5-point favorites, traveling across the country at a noon game. I just talked about it last week. That worries me a little bit. I like the Falcons in terms of their grittiness. They're not a very talented team, but they seem to be fighting pretty well. I just think that the Niners are starting to hit a stride. Yep. Jimmy G's back in it. He's getting back in the flow. That little rust period looks like it's probably about over. 4.5 isn't enough for me to be scared off this line, so I'm going to take the Niners minus 4.5 in this one, and I'll put an orange chip on it.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, absolutely. Even though the 49ers are going through some injury issues right now, they're still a much better football team than the Falcons. They should be able to roll today, especially no Kyle Pitts out there. The Falcons are struggling with some of their skill guys. I'm going to take it to one of our marquee games today, which is the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Okay.
I'm going to stay completely away from that minus 6.5. I don't know what the hell is going to happen in this football game. I think they're two really good football teams. But I do think that they're two really good defenses that I admire a lot. So I'm actually going to put an orange chip on the under for this football game today. I'm going to go under the 42 points today. I just think that this is going to be a defensive struggle. You've got a couple offensive linemen banged up for the Eagles. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to move the football. Michael Parsons on that side. And then the other side, you've got Cooper Rush going against that defense. I just feel like this is going to be a low-scoring slugfest of a football game.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That makes a lot of sense to me. The other under, I like a couple unders. Maybe I'll just kind of continue your theme. Doesn't the Patriots at Cleveland feel like an under?
Yes.
43 points here. Bill Belichick kind of bringing out saying, I'm going to stop Nick Chubb and, figure out the rest here, Cleveland. And, you've got a backup quarterback. I mean, it just feels like Bill Belichick's going to try to slow down this game. He's going to try to win it 17-13 or something like that. So I like that under quite a bit.
Not only do I like that under, I'm with you there, but I actually like the Patriots to cover that spread. I'm going to put a blue chip on there at that plus 2.5. Just for all the things that you said, Bill Belichick is going to go out there. He's going to take away your strength, which is running the football. He's going to be able to shut that down. He's going to try and say, okay, Jacoby Brissett, I want you to be able to throw the football and try and beat me today. And, listen, I think the Patriots are playing much better football right now, even though they have Bailey Zappi back there. I think they're able to run the football right now pretty well. And I do think they're going to go into Cleveland and be able to get that upset. So I'm going to take them to at least cover today. But even, potentially money line, if you're looking out there, might be worth some juice as well.
Yep, I like that. Again, this is just respect on the man, right?
Yes.
Respect on Bill Belichick.
We learned from last week, right, where he shut down.
Man, he totally. Yeah, I was like, all right, all right, man, you're back in it. The other under that I had written down was this Tampa Bay Steelers game, and this is just totally because I really think that the Bucs defense is great, and you're going against rookie quarterback. They may put up a lot of points because the Steelers are really banged up. So, the only thing that worries me a little bit about this line is that the Bucs put up 42, right? And that's a possibility. So I'm just going to put this as a half bet, but I just think that the Bucs defense has been so good. If you have one really dominant defense going against an offense that isn't very good, I feel like it's a smart bet to put it on the under.
That football game gets my big chip of the week, and it is the black chip for the Bucs to cover that spread. Is for all the reasons that you said. Listen, Tom Brady has something. He's like 20-5 in his career against rookie quarterbacks. That Todd Bowles defense going up against Pickett and that Steelers team. I think that Steelers team has one of the worst rosters in the league right now, and I just feel like, again, similar to that Rams game, this is a get back game for the Bucs, right? They haven't quite blown somebody out and really kind of flexed their muscles a little bit. I think that this is the game that they're going to be able to do it. They're going to really, I think they're going to house the Steelers today in a big way. I think Tom Brady needs one of those 4 or 5 touchdown games from him. And then, I think they're going to be able to blow them out. So I'm going to take them big today, the Bucs, to cover that spread.
All right, I'll join you with an orange chip. It's another bet that I had written down. I agree with you for all the reasons that you talked about. It does feel like a Tom Brady gets back in here. Godwin's gotten back to full health. You feel good about Chris Godwin here. Mike Evans is looking good. So at this point, his receivers should be back to where they are. We haven't seen this offense operate at a high level yet. And that's what I said. The only reason I'm worried about that 46 is because Tom Brady puts up 42, right? So I do feel pretty good about that. Even though it's a big line, I feel good about it, right? Steelers, it's a rebuilding year. We kind of do that going in. A lot of people want to deny it because they love Tomlin, and I love Tomlin too. But it's just not a good football team. You know who I don't think is a very good football team, but continues to be treated like one? Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of the Green Bay Packers. They're obviously, but they're hosting the New York Jets, who everybody thinks is terrible. They're not great, but are they worse? Are they a 7.5 point underdog? I don't think so. So I'm going to take the Jets on the road to cover this 7.5. I think they keep it within a score. I don't think the Packers are good enough to blow a lot of teams out at this point.
I was looking at that line too. I am 100% joining you with a blue chip as well on that plus 7.5. I just think the Jets are going to be able to run the football today on that Packers team. Breece Hall, Michael Carter, And if Zach Wilson can make a couple throws, why can't they keep that game close, right? I mean, we all saw last week as we were doing the show in real time, the Packers just kind of just were a mess against the Giants, and lost that football game. The week before that, Bailey Zappi went into Lambeau Field and was able to keep that game close. So there's no reason why the Jets can't keep this game close. I agree with you. I don't think the Packers are a very good football team as well. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of these games to me are kind of some big stayaways. There's some weird lines out there this week. One that is kind of jumping out to me here is I don't think the Cardinals are a very good football team. And the fact that they're going on the road to Seattle and they're favorites, I'm not a huge fan of that. So I'm going to put a blue chip. I don't feel great about it, but I'm going to put a blue chip on the Seahawks to cover that +2.5 spread. Listen, Geno Smith is playing great football right now, and he's got a good offensive line around him. He's got good wide receivers around him. And I just don't trust Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, to go on the road into Seattle and cover 2.5. I just don't like it. Furthermore, if you were dabbling a little bit more, I feel really good about Seattle in the first half as well on that football game to cover the spread.
Nice. Yeah, Seattle's been quite a shocker to me.
Yeah.
Right. Like I thought they would be one of those teams that would be just really terrible. Mm-hmm. And that's how I treated them early, and just kept being like, well, if you're playing Seattle tight, then you're not very good yet. Right. Like, because I just had, those are your priors. You come into the year, you build your narrative of how you think the year is going to go. So that's been kind of interesting to see them be pretty competitive, and good for them. Right. Like Geno Smith's been great, and good for Geno Smith. Right. He was drafted into a bad situation, and maybe he's built his career into something that he can be a viable starter going forward. That's awesome. Good for him. Right. Yep. I wish this line was 2.5, but I want to go to that Vikings Dolphins game.
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing a third string quarterback, right? I mean, this is, what are we doing here? Vikings look like a pretty good football team. I know that Miami has some talent, but there's just some weird stuff going on in Miami. We're into mid-October. We're not in the September Miami situation where they get this humidity effect, and so I'm gonna feel okay about throwing on a blue chip for the Vikings to cover -3 on the road against a third string quarterback.
I like it. Yeah, absolutely. They should be able to go out there and definitely cover that spread, right? You just hope that's not one of those hot, humid days in Miami and wears down the Vikings. But I completely agree with you. Most of these games for me are complete stayaways. I got to stay away from Jacksonville this week, although I'm super tempted at that +1.5. But I think my final bet for me is I'm just looking at that Bengals Saints game.
Yep.
And that 43 number seems a little bit low to me indoors. Right. With both of those teams. I think that you're going to see some Taysom Hill touchdowns today. I think Andy Dalton is moving a lot better with that Saints offense than Jameis Winston. And boy, do the Bengals really need this football game today, right? They have to win this football game to me. But I think we're going to be able to get some points today. So I'm going to put a blue chip on the over at 43, just indoors. Two of those offenses should be able to score more than 43 points today.
I have the same thinking as you do.
Yeah.
And for me, it's an orange bet on the Bengals -3. Look, you got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase coming back to the New Orleans area. That they played their college ball at LSU. I feel like there's just something extra there for them today. Like you said, they need to get right. I think the Saints are an okay football team, but I don't think that they're very good. And I do wonder if that over-under line of 43 is, I don't know where that's coming from. Yeah. Like, these aren't like great defenses. Right. They're fine.
Yeah.
But they're not great defenses. I think that they can put up points. I feel like there's a little bit of an offensive explosion. And then you said that was your last bet?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, man. I want to get in on this game here. I'm gonna put a blue chip on Josh Allen to prove that he is officially there. He's gonna go into Arrowhead. He's gonna come out with a win. That's a 2.5 point spread. Means that he just need to win by a field goal. I just want a little bit of juice in this game. It's the game I'm going to watch today.
Yes.
I got other stuff I have to do. I'm not watching the noon slate. I went to the Bears game, so the Bears aren't playing today.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about that. But this is the one game I really got to focus on today. I want a little bit of juice on it. I really love Mahomes. I really love watching Kansas City. I think they're great.
Mm-hmm.
They, to me, are the second best team in the AFC, though. And
This is the marquee game. This is the two prize fighters duking it out against each other, which almost I'm not going to do it, but that 54 line is high, and I'm like,
very high.
It's high. It's high. It's high. I was tempted to do a little under because I think that if the Chiefs want to win this football game, they're going to try and slow things down and really kind of milk that play clock and do a lot of running and keep Josh Allen off the football field. So I almost did it, but keep an eye on that 54 number. It might go under today.
That 54 is a big number. I think everybody wants it to go over, right?
Yeah.
Like I think you watch that game because you want to see what we saw in the AFC divisional round last year, which is just this amazing back and forth. But what we're quick to forget is that back and forth happened in the last couple minutes,
right?
And before that, it was a reasonable game, in terms of score. So yeah, I thought about it too. It scares me when you have two dynamos playing quarterback. I mean, list out your top 5 quarterbacks. I don't care who you are; those two guys are in it, right? Yep. Like whatever you value in quarterbacks, those two guys are going to be in your top 5. And most people are going to start off with Mahomes and Allen or Allen and Mahomes. Yep. So this is the game. So yep. I just want a little bit of juice on it because it's fun. All right. So
let's say shout out to both of us too for staying away from that completely weird Giants-Ravens game. I
know. Yeah. No interest.
Just stay away from that. That's a weird game.
Like you said, there was a few stayaways for me too. I wasn't interested in a lot of games, but those are the ones I had written down. I'll tweet out that board later here. Let's get into prize picks. So like I said, I hit 4 out of 5 on Thursday. It's the only time the Bears are going to play on Thursday night. And so we had a full betting slate of Thursday night games for the preview show. So I gave a full 5. I hit 4 out of 5. Felt pretty good about that result. So I did include that in my result. So I'm up 4.2 units because I hit 3 out of 5 last week. You did not. You only got 2 of your 5 last week. So you are still positive in this in this game that we're playing here, plus 0.8 units. But basketball is starting. I know nothing about basketball, but I would say that Steph Curry over half a point is probably a pretty decent bet, and that's where you started.
That's where I started. I'm so happy the NBA is back. I'm a huge basketball fan. I'm a basketball junkie. Shout out to the defending champions. Shout out to Steph Curry, who's one of the 10 greatest players of all time, in my opinion. And I'm going to celebrate the return of the NBA season and him coming back by taking full advantage of free money. They're giving you free money with this bet. They're saying he just has to get 1 point for you to win. I promise you Steph Curry is going to finish with over 20 points in his opening game. So I'm going to take advantage of that, put the over on the 0.5 for Steph Curry. He's going to have to just get 1 bucket. He'll get 1 bucket in the first 2 minutes of the basketball game. This is Steph Curry. But yeah, I'm going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, it could be like first bucket scorer too, as
absolutely.
As far as that's concerned. Yeah, so obviously this is a promo that Prize Picks is using. If you guys are sitting on the fence about Prize Picks and you want to start, this would be a really good week to do it because they'll allow you to mix the Steph Curry bet with football bets here. So you could fill out a football slate and use this Steph Curry bet like Ross is doing today, and it's a giveaway, right? So it's free juice. If you just wanted to do like a 2-person parlay, you could use the Steph Curry bet in with that. But if you want to do the full 5, you can do that as well. So good stuff there. I would certainly take that as well. But again, we don't want to duplicate bets. So I'm going to take that as well in my real slate. But I'm going to give you 5 bets that I like. We're going to start off in the San Francisco game. We've got 3 total bets in that San Francisco game that between us we have picked. My first bet is Kyle Juszczyk, who is the fullback there. I think that Garoppolo likes to find him. We didn't see that connection necessarily when Lance was the quarterback, but Garoppolo knows how to use Kyle Juszczyk. He's had 1 or 2 catches in each game, but they're for 20 yards when he gets the ball. So he just needs 1 catch really to get over that 8.5. That's basically what you're betting on for the most part. And for me, he's part of this offense. He's a really dynamic player. They just need to find him once. I think they will. Again, I think this is a game where they score some points here against this Atlanta defense. So I like Kyle Juszczyk over 8.5 yards. It's just one of those that just kind of pops out as you being like, yeah, he only needs to do this once.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm actually going to that exact game and into another one of Jimmy G's weapons, and I'm going to take Deebo Samuel to go over that 5 receptions today. I just think that it's going to be a heavy dose of him. I think that he should be able to be the focal point of the offense today, as that 49ers team is going through some injury struggles right now. And get him a big day today, 6 receptions, and probably for like 100 and something yards. He should also probably get an anytime TD today.
Now, I might be going to the well one too many times on these interceptions because I haven't hit the last couple that I've picked, right? So I can't resist Marcus Mariota as an interception, right? He's thrown an interception, I think, in 4 out of the 5 games that he's played. Or maybe it's 3 out of the 5. Yeah. But he's going against San Francisco, and San Francisco's defense is really good. And I would imagine that Atlanta's going to be trailing in most of this game. So I think he's probably going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than he'd like. And so I like Marcus Mariota as a person, but I would like Marcus Mariota to throw 1 interception today. That feels like a pretty good bet to me. So I am kind of doubling up on the interception bets today, but this was one that kind of stuck out to me is going against a really good defense. And you're probably going to be trailing. I'm gonna bet on the defense here.
Yep, I like that a lot. D'Amico Ryans, future head coach of the Carolina Panthers, maybe has that defense rolling. So absolutely, I like that a lot. I'm gonna go to my guy PJ Walker. No disrespect to you, my brother, but I'm gonna take the under on your passing yards today as you go against the Los Angeles Rams. That whole football team is a complete mess right now. They just fired the head coach. They might be trading Christian McCaffrey. They might trade Robbie Anderson. They might trade DJ Moore. They're in full tank blow-up mode right now. And then you go against the Rams, who need that football game really bad right now, coming off a bad loss last week against the Cowboys. And Aaron Donald's going to be pissed off, and Jalen Ramsey, and so on and so forth. I just don't think that they're going to be able to move the football today. I don't know how PJ Walker is going to do it. I'm going to take the under on those passing yards.
Yeah, I was surprised to see them even put a line on him just because there's so much unknown. But, good for them for trying to put a number on it. It does seem a little high. And like you said, it feels like the Rams need to really kind of come out and make a statement here that they're not dead. I put in a big bid for Kenneth Walker to be able to get him on my fantasy team. He's the man now, right? And Pete Carroll's not afraid to make a bell cow back. And Penny's out for the year. So I think Kenneth Walker is going to get a lot of work. He's a highly drafted rookie. My man Erik Smith, who we're going to hear from here in a little bit, said, "Trust it, trust it. This is a guy that's got the talent." So I think this number is where it's at because he doesn't have a big body of work to go off of. We like the Seahawks a little bit better than we would have thought coming into the year. This is a divisional game, so why not? 61.5 yards doesn't feel like an insurmountable amount. He broke off a big run in his first extended action last week. I think that he has the ability to do that again, and certainly he's going to get enough volume to be able to flirt with the 80-90 yard mark, let alone the 60s.
Yeah, I like Kenneth Walker a lot. He's a good football player, and it sucks that they lost Penny for a while, but Kenneth Walker is going to be able to fill in and do that job just well. That Seahawks team, man, it's them and the Giants. Surprises of the NFL season so far.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm going to also stick with the ground. I'm going to Green Bay. I'm going with Breece Hall. I'm taking the over on his 60.5 rushing yards. I don't think the Packers defense is very good. I don't think that they're able to stop the run. I think that's a huge struggle for them. We saw Saquon Barkley last week, go off. We've seen all season long teams be able to run on them. I just think that Breece Hall is going to have a big football game today, and he's having a good season so far. I'm going to take the over on those 6.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, like I say, I don't think Green Bay is as good as what people think they are, or the books think they are, or the betting public thinks they are. Whatever it is, it always feels like these lines are a little inflated right now. And so if you can find some value in their competition, I think that works here. Breece Hall, Iowa State guy, so played football nearby me. I'm going to go to Justin Jefferson. I just not sure that anybody can contain this guy right now, but I certainly don't think that the Dolphins have shown that they can limit wide receivers to any sort of respectable number. And so the best path to winning this football game down in Miami today for Kirk Cousins is to target your wide receiver 1, and 87.5. That ain't nothing to Justin Jefferson, who's going regularly over 100 yards. So I think he went over 100 yards against the Bears in the first half. So I think that 87.5 just isn't nearly enough. I'll take a superstar to clear that number.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun watching him go up against Tyreek Hill today. Two superstar wide receivers out there. So I agree with you there. I'm going to take, again, this is betting on Bill Belichick, the master, the greatest head coach of all time in the NFL. I'm going to take the over on that Patriots defense and special teams to get over 5 points in the fantasy score. I actually feel like this might be one of those defensive touchdowns or special teams block or a safety. Something weird is going to happen in this football game. Something very Bill Belichick-y is going to happen in this football game. He knows Jacoby Brissett very well from his days that he spent in New England. We talked about it earlier. He's going to try and shut down the run and Nick Chubb. It just feels like this has something weird happening in the Patriots' favor on defense special teams. So I'm going to take the over on that 5 points.
I like it. I'll finish up again. I doubled up on interception bets today.
Oh, faithful Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan, right? Like, come on. 4 out of 5 games he's thrown a pick. I think the one game he didn't throw a pick is when I put the bet on, right? Like, I think that might have been the game that he didn't throw a pick at. But I mean, right now he's a turnover machine. Jacksonville's defense isn't bad. Like they haven't been quite dominant or anything, but they've got some players on that side of the football. I think it's just this point. It's just you're betting on Matt Ryan giving the ball away at least once, right? I mean, I know he's been leading the league in fumbles too, but this is a Matt Ryan bet to me. Like, this is 4 out of 5 games he's thrown a pick. Yeah, that's a pretty good ratio. I think he keeps it going here.
What I always say about Matt Ryan, what I love about him is he always usually gets it out the way in the first quarter too. Right. Just get it right out the way, throw that first pick in the first quarter, and then ease into the football game. I love it.
All right, well, those are our Prize Picks bets this week. Again, I just find it more fun to bet for the over. Occasionally, I'll find something I like. Well, that number feels too high, and I'll bet under. These are 50-50 bets. So if you're always betting over and you're not doing well, then, mix it up, do some unders. But I kind of search out for bets that I like to go over. That's kind of, it's more fun for me that way, as opposed to cheering for a player to not do something well. But sometimes you like the Philip Walker bet. You're like, I don't know, Rook, but it burned you last week because you had a Kenny Pickett bet, and Kenny Pickett, who did not score a lot of points for the Steelers, sure did put up the yards.
He went garbage time yards on me.
Right. Yep. That happens, right? So, I like prop bets. I think they're fun. I think to a certain extent you can kind of try to envision game flow and predict that way. But sometimes it doesn't matter, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can get it all right and something weird can happen and it goes the other way. So what are you going to do? Ross, any final thoughts on your week 6 stuff before we get you out of here?
I was going to say, I'm just happy to be able to watch football today, be able to watch the Red Zone channel and not have to focus 3 hours on the Bears, who are just completely nauseating right now. So it's going to be happy. I think it's a great slate of games. It's going to be exciting. We stayed away from the game, but that Giants-Ravens game just has like something weird's going to happen in that game. Pay attention to that football game today. And then, like you said, I can't wait for Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. There's going to be some good football games today. I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. That the Baltimore could blow them out by 38 points. Yeah. The Giants could win a game really late, and it's just going to be weird. Like something wild's going to happen.
So many subplots. You got the Wink Martindale revenge game, right? He was basically let go by the Ravens for taking the brunt of the blame for that situation, and he has that defense playing very well for the Giants. This is a weird football game, so I can't wait. That Bengals Saints game is a little weird too. There's some games this week that are like, some things are going to happen today. I anticipate a very fun week.
We'll let you go here. We'll get Erik's opinion on the Bengals here in a second.
Yes.
So he's a Bengals fan, so we'll get that going. But nice. Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it. Enjoy your Sunday.
See you guys.
All right, Erik, welcome in. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. Yeah, can't complain. Ready for some football. No early football this week, so I got a little extra sleep.
Yeah, I know. Ross had a penchant for betting the London game, and I didn't get it in time to put it up on the board to get the line right. So I kept having to do like second half, lines to show it. But nice to not have the London game because I haven't been able to watch it because we've been doing this and I was setting up in the morning and everything. So I used to like the London game, but when we're doing this, it's really not that fun because I'm not watching it. So why don't we talk about the Bengals real quick before we get into it? I think that game It's interesting with Burrow returning to the New Orleans area. I know LSU's not in New Orleans, but
Right.
him and Jamar Chase, obviously, heroes of that area. A lot of LSU fans down in New Orleans showed up in a Jamar Chase LSU #1 jersey to the game.
Nice.
So you think that there's he's going to come out and show out, or do you think that he's going to be maybe a little hyped up and there's going to be some, issues early because he's trying to force the ball?
Yeah, I'm not so worried about Burrow necessarily. It's just kind of, like always, the play calling, the whole offensive scheme, all of that. I heard you all say you like the over on this game. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning the other way.
Okay.
I think the Bengals defense is really underrated. They have not allowed 20 points yet this year. I believe the one game that went over 20 was a defensive touchdown, pick 6 that Burrow threw. So their defense is playing really well. Really handled Baltimore other than that last drive. So I don't know. I think especially if T. Higgins is out or limited, there's going to be a ton of double teaming on Jamar Chase. And they started to get the run game going last week, so I could see them leaning into it. So it also worries me that New Orleans has no healthy receivers for this game. So that would be the only thing I would worry about for a high-scoring game would be if the Bengals think they can handle this, kind of run the ball, keep it safe, and eke out a win against Andy Dalton with no receivers. So that would be my concern. But I sure hope we get the magic of Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, in New Orleans. That would be great. It would, help a lot of Bengals fans' concerns if they just went out and lit up the Saints secondary. So I'm here for it. Hopefully we see that in a couple hours.
I agree. T. Higgins, I'm not starting him today in my team because that ankle last week really burned me, and I'm fortunate enough to have enough wide receivers to not have to worry about it. But that was disappointing.
Yeah, it was.
I did not like that. So let's talk about daily fantasy. Again, we do not coordinate here. So this week we have some similar thoughts, but not complete overlap like we have had in the past. But we both want in on that Kansas City Buffalo game. I went with the premium pick of Josh Allen. Chiefs defense has not been very good against quarterbacks. I think Josh Allen is playing as good a football as anybody ever has.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, he's playing hero ball at this point. He's the offense. So I did something a little crazy. I doubled up on his secondary weapons. I took Greg Davis and Isaiah McKenzie as my wide receivers just because they're a little cheaper than Stephon Diggs, and I could get in on the receiving end of this as well. So I went super premium quarterback with his weapons that are, somewhat discounted price relative to, the stars for sure, thinking that they're going to put up a lot of points today. And I'm not sure what Kansas City can do. Maybe they can try to take away Stephon Diggs, but they can't take away everything. I wanted as many weapons as I could in this Buffalo offense.
Yeah, same thoughts for me. I get Mahomes and the Travis Kelce stack. That was kind of because, man, tight end is just so bad this year other than the top 2 options. And if you're looking at this from a big tournament angle, it's I don't know how you win if you don't have, Kelce and 3 touchdowns or Mark Andrews and 2 touchdowns. That was kind of the thought there. And that led me to Mahomes. But yeah, I was looking at the exact same game. So I went with Stephon Diggs on the other side, kind of thinking if Mahomes and Kelce are going to score a bunch, so obviously Buffalo is. I actually made another lineup this week because I felt like my lineup was just too chalky, just too obvious picks. I moved down from Diggs to Isaiah McKenzie, so I'm on board with you on that. It freed me up to spend at some other spots. But really anyone in this game that's playing a good amount of snaps is on board. I also like Devin Singletary. He seems to do better in these shootout games where he's going to catch a bunch of passes. So, just really anyone in this matchup looks good. A lot of people are going to be playing them, though, but there's a good chance you're going to need a couple of these guys.
Yeah, I doubled up. So my wide receivers, this is probably not a good idea, but I doubled up on the Buffalo wide receivers, and I also double up on the Tampa wide receivers. So Tampa's they're favored by quite a lot this week. They're going in and they're facing a secondary that not only is bad, but beat up. And so you have the worst team against wide receivers is Pittsburgh. They're going against the Bucks, who really haven't necessarily got it all going at the same time yet. Yeah. But I think that we can agree that they're still a good football team. They know what they're doing. They got Tom Brady. Eventually this thing's going to burst. And that this week feels like a pretty good spot for that, given the weakness and the softness of that secondary. So I doubled up. I didn't want miss out, but I also think both of these guys could be incredibly viable. You're talking about two guys that are top 15 options in most places. So give me both of them. They're kind of, I don't want to say cheap, but they're not overly expensive in this kind of spot. So I went with both of them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely makes a ton of sense with Buffalo, just as much as they throw the ball. And I mean, Tampa Bay's right there as well. I bounced around having Godwin in and out of my lineup, so I agree with you. I expect them to throw it a lot. They're starting to get healthy. Yeah, good things for Tampa Bay. I guess my other receivers, I just love anyone against Seattle right now. So Rondelle Moore came back last week. First, like, real healthy week and really took over for Greg Dortch. Actually saw a little bit more downfield targets from Rondelle Moore than in the past. He's always gotten just kind of check down stuff, but it was a little better last week. So I'm feeling pretty good about Moore and what I think is a shootout. And then Adam Thielen, I kind of ended on him just because we talked about on our podcast, we were looking at like some pass funnel and run funnel defenses, just kind of the defenses that are maybe decent against the run, but bad against the pass, and it forces teams to throw against them, those kind of defenses. And Miami has been one of those so far. They've been pretty good at the run, stopping it, not real great against the pass. So I just kind of thought Thielen at 5,900, especially if they're kind of lighting it up against a third string quarterback. Like, Miami doesn't have the ball much, and I could see Thielen scoring a touchdown too. So that's how I ended up on Thielen. I think he's a little undervalued, and he's still got a little upside going forward.
Yeah, I had a Justin Jefferson prop bet.
Yeah.
I know you were backstage for that, but
Yeah.
that makes sense to me that aerial attack for the Vikings is probably going to be out in full effect. So it's good to get in on that. My last pass catcher, George Kittle, I thought there was some value there. He has not had a big game yet. Going up against Atlanta felt like a pretty good spot. They're not very good against tight ends, relatively cheap. Like you said, tight ends tough. You either go premium and you get the Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, or you try to find talented players elsewhere that may burst out. At TJ Hawkinson bet from a couple of weeks ago was big for me. Yeah. This feels like a potential Hawkinson bet. Kittle could go off here. He could be the guy that really exploits the Falcons defense. And so felt like it was a good spot to take him.
Yeah, I mean, Kittle's the type that is near unplayable for like 3 weeks because he's blocking a lot, but he's still such a big play receiver that when he does go off, it's usually a big week. So, yeah, that's probably a good one. A lot of people have been burned by him, so I bet he's low rostered. So, I like that. It looks like we're pretty similar here on running backs. I think, Benjamin and Daryl Henderson are two of the clear, like, cheap running backs to play this week. I kind of just got them both in this lineup. Cam Akers is like off the team right now. We're not exactly sure what's going on. They say they want to trade him, but I'm not sure who's going to trade for him necessarily. And then, Benjamin's like the last man standing. And like I said, I just love anyone in that Seattle against Seattle's defense at this point. So I also looked at Ramondre Stevenson quite a bit. So I like your pick as well. It looks pretty certain that Damian Harris is going to be out this week. Just do check on that right before when inactives come out, but we should be hearing on that soon.
Yeah, the Henderson thing, I know that probably everybody's going to have him rostered. So if you want to zig when everybody else is zagging, then don't pick him, right? Like that makes sense, totally understandable. This just felt so obvious to me. Most people are going to be up on injury news and whatever this news is, like you said, personal reasons of whatever, clearly some sort of fight between Akers and somebody in the locker room, somebody on the coaching staff, not happy with his usage or getting called out for not making plays, whatever it is. But he's not part of this team right now, may not be part of this team ever again. And that's pretty sad when I came into the year with Cam Akers as my keeper. So not great. And funny story, I picked up Kenneth Walker and dropped Daryl Henderson to make the move, and then picked up Daryl Henderson back up, because no one picked him up, and got in on it right before the news really broke too big. So I did save myself, got Daryl Henderson back, but holy moly, that was a very stressful moment for my fantasy team. But yeah. Seems kind of obvious in terms of that pick, but I'm going with it anyway. Like you said, Ramondre Stevenson, this feels like a Bill Belichick game of I am going to try to take away the run and I'm going to pound it down your throat. Cleveland's not very good against running backs, and Bill Belichick is really good at exploiting what you're not good at. And so and Stevenson's going to be the guy that we think, I've been burned by Bill Belichick backs many times, but this feels like a really good spot to play Stevenson. So yeah, I feel good about that. And Benjamin's obviously the other guy that I was looking at. A lot of people are probably going to be looking at those. So if you want to zag, makes total sense. The only other pick here that probably needs to be talked about would be the defenses. I'm going back to the well here with the Jags. They've burned me in the past, but you're going against turnover happy Matt Ryan. Maybe Matt Ryan plays a clean sheet because I'm playing the Jags defense today, but it feels like a good spot to get some turnovers. Doesn't take much for one of those turnovers to turn into a touchdown, and you have just a giant day. So to me, it felt like the Jags defense was the right play here. You went with the Rams going against Baker Mayfield at home with a big spread. Feels like a pretty good play as well.
Wait, I don't get Baker. This is we're on to PJ.
Oh,
Walker.
not Baker. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it matters, but
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason I'm playing Henderson. I do think Henderson's like a clear fade if you do want to go against the trend, because the Rams running backs have not been good this year. Like, you could combine Daryl Henderson and Cam Akers and barely get a startable running back. So I do think it's fading Daryl Henderson is in play here. I think Carolina is going to be so bad. I think the Rams defense is going to lock them down, and I'm just hoping for some rushing touchdowns here. Basically, that's my thought.
Well, let's move on to Survivor. And we talked about 3 teams as viable last week. I had the first pick, and I picked the one team that didn't pay off. I thought I was being pretty smart. Taking the Jags, getting them off the board, wouldn't have to worry about them again. It felt like a good spot against the Texans. Yeah, it's a divisional game, but they're at home, right? Like, they'll take care of business, because of that tiebreaker at home kind of thing. They're the better team. Texans are still struggling, even though they've been playing teams competitive. No, they lose. They just looked awful. So I take my second strike already. Again, we're playing this all the way out, so I might finish with 10 strikes here. But tough week for me, not a tough week for you. You took the Bills, who were the safest pick on the board. I probably just should have done that, but it is what it is. You have the board this week.
And I will say I had the pleasure of writing up the Jaguars-Texans game last week for what we saw. So I watched that whole thing, and it was not pretty. It looked like both teams were just waiting for the other team to make a mistake. One of those games. It was just play it close to the vest, and then Trevor threw the pick in the end zone, and it kind of snowballed. So 13-6, awesome stuff for our fantasy teams. But anyway, so I think we kind of differ maybe in our strategy a little bit. I tend to just burn these teams up right away. So I'm going to stick with what we were talking about in DFS. I'm going to go with the Rams at home against the Panthers.
You can't.
Oh, that is a Rams logo. Okay. Well, now I gave away my other pick then. Sorry about that.
I was like, wait a minute. I already planned this out.
I've got 2 top options here. So I don't think I see a Tampa Bay Buccaneers logo there. So I'm going to go with the Bucs. I actually don't love playing a team in Pittsburgh. They do still have a good defense, and Pickett, while still learning, does have some talent, but I find it hard to believe that Tom Brady is going to go in there and lose to Kenny Pickett. So especially with TJ Watt still out, it's pretty clear Buccaneers. So those are my 2 top options. I think spread wise, you've got Packers and Jets in there. I just don't trust this Packers team right now. So those are kind of the top options on my board.
You couldn't anyway. You've already picked the Packers.
I've already picked them as well.
That's funny because I remember looking at the board earlier today, and I was like, all right, I think that it's Bucks or Rams are the 2 that I feel best about. But Erik goes first. He can't take the Rams. So you're just going to take the Rams, right? I had already kind of been, okay, this is what I'm going to do for Survivor picks. And then you're like, the Rams. I'm like, what? Wait a minute. How did I mess that up? And I was like, no, he can't take that. So,
I set my board going into this, but I didn't have my prior picks. So I'm going to need that going forward. I'm going to take a screenshot.
I'm taking the Rams. This is the first team that we've used 2 of, so I'm pulling it from the top. So we can't take them anymore. But if they can't win this game, I feel bad about both of my strikes here. That I'm bummed that I have 2 strikes. I don't hate my process. Week 3, the Chiefs laying an egg in Indianapolis. I mean, it happens. You move on. Last week, okay, you can argue that was a little aggressive because the Jags, I shouldn't have trusted them. But man, they've looked pretty good at times this year. So, being able to beat a bad football team at home is something that they should be able to do. But, whatever. if I get a strike here, like this is just NFL being like nothing matters, right?
Yeah.
Because they absolutely have to get right in this game, and there's a reason why the spread is as big as it is. And so, like you said, burn the teams when you can. I don't know that the Rams are a really good football team or not, but this feels to me like the spot. Green Bay, you already burned them, but and when you did, you said, I don't know that they're that good, and this is the only spot that I feel really good about them. And then you said maybe in a couple of weeks against the Jets, they're 7.5-point favorites at home. They'll probably win this game because that's what Green Bay does, is they just win games that, because they are who they are and a couple things break their way. But 7.5 points feels like too much to me, even against the Jets for this team. I don't think the Green Bay Packers are playing all that good of football. I'm sure they'll figure it out. They'll finish 13-4, right? That's just who they are. It's what they do. I get it. But if you're gonna take the Packers today, you might have a stressful afternoon. That's all. That's my point. Like they are not in control of football games yet. So good luck with that. But yeah, I think the Rams and the Bucks are kind of the up in front two teams that make a lot of sense. If you got to go on the road to Pittsburgh, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Their secondary is really beat up, so I wouldn't feel too bad about that. I like it.
Yeah, and the Packers, I was just expecting the Packers defense to be better, and maybe even their running game. There's just no big plays in this offense right now, and it's just reminds me, maybe I said this last week, but it reminds me of some of those Patriots teams back in the day where they didn't have many weapons at receiver, and they're just grinding out wins, with the passing game, and that's what it feels like with the Packers. So yeah, I agree, they probably win, but it's going to be closer than I would like, I think.
Well, I tell you, in the league that I'm in, the survivor pool, I should say, with the website, the Windy City Gridiron, I'm out. Yeah. I have a similar board. I got my strike with the Chiefs. I got my strike with the Jags last week, and then because I went to the football game on Thursday night, and because I was a little bit on tilt for getting that second strike, I said, you know what? I'm taking the Bears. I'm going to be there. I'm taking the Bears. I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to put my confidence out into the world. And they're a better football team. They're going to go up on them early. They're going to be able to beat Carson Wentz, take the football away. Like, this is going to be a game where they're going to win. And I was kind of right in terms of they should have scored 2 early touchdowns. That should have been a 14-0 game early, and they just could not figure out the low red zone in that one, and let the Commanders stick around. Gave the Commanders points. The refs helped them out a little bit with some on one drive to get a field goal, but gave them that touchdown basically by muffing that punt deep into their own territory, which I was right in front of me. Very disappointing. And so again, I don't hate my process, and that's all you can do is just think the NFL is it's parity filled, and that's what it is. And sometimes you get these things right, sometimes you get these things wrong. That's the fun of it. That's what makes it a game. So let's talk fantasy stuff. I've got a couple questions here. We've got, what's HPPR? Half point PPR flex league. Michael Thomas, T. Higgins, Damian Harris, all banged up. Have Henderson, Algier, and Elijah Moore. Leaning Henderson a week after I almost dropped him, which I did drop him and I picked him back up. So totally know where you're coming from here, Ryan. Yeah. So what are you thinking about in terms of the options that Ryan has laid out here?
Yeah, I think it's got to be Daryl Henderson. Like I said before, the production has not been great, so it's a little scary, but he should have the lead back. I mean, he was already 60% of the snaps last week before Cam Akers went away, so he's on the field a lot. Carolina actually came up as one of our run funnel defenses. We kind of analyzed just production plus volume and looked at these defenses that are going to give up one or the other, and Carolina does kind of favor rushing teams. So again, I hope the Rams get up here, run the ball in the second half. It's behind Daryl Henderson. It's like, I mean, there's nobody there. It's Malcolm Brown, who's been around forever. That's about all they got. They're waiting for Kyron Williams to come off IR. So I like Daryl Henderson here. Elijah Moore, I still am holding out hope for him. He's really talented. I think better things are ahead, but I would not want to start him. And then Tyler Algier I kind of like, but that San Francisco defense is brutal. So I'm not starting anyone there. I will say T. Higgins is active. And the Bengals don't generally do this kind of decoy thing where someone plays. That's why I was so surprised last week. I was telling everyone to play T. Higgins, but it just worries me that he was not able to get back in the game, a close game against Baltimore, a huge game. That worries me for this week. So Higgins is there. He's active. You can play him if you need him. It's a little worrisome for me, though. It's 2 straight weeks of this kind of limited practice stuff.
Yeah, I can't trust it. Like I said, I'm in a pretty favorable position here. I've got Justin Jefferson, Cortland Sutton, and Chris Godwin that I can play, right? And then I've got a flex position, but I'm playing Henderson, so I'm playing Henderson over Higgins, right? And that only feels like it's a safer bet, and you're not going to get burned by the decoy thing. I've got Devin Singletary, like you say, you liked him in shootout type games like this. But I don't know that I'd feel better about playing him over Kenneth Walker or Raheem Mostert right now, right? I mean, I don't know where your rankings are with those guys, but I don't, and it's not a PPR league for me, but just kind of a straight up.
Okay. Yeah, that changes a lot then for sure. I'm kind of ranking these from a PPR perspective. I like Singletary ahead of them, but yeah, it's a lot of passing game work for Singletary. I mean, his big week was 11 targets, 9 catches, 78 yards. That was that game against Miami. So where they just threw it a ton. So yeah, I almost think of Singletary as more of a receiver right now. I mean, he's still putting up production on the ground, but I want him in those passing games. So yeah, I don't mind that. I've got in PPR rankings, I have Singletary 16, Walker 21, Mostert 23, but those are going to swing a lot on those players in a standard league. So looks like Mostert's good to go. He was on the injury report a little bit, but it seems like he's checked out as fine. And yeah, you talked about Walker before, but it's a great spot for him. He's going to lose third down work probably, so that kind of caps his upside a little bit in PPR leagues and maybe his floor as well. But in a standard league, I really like him against Arizona this week, and he's going to get a lot of carries.
And Ryan just giving us a shout out for the Justin Fields prop bet, which you're welcome. And I did say he's going to go over 200 if you can get an alternative bet, which is exactly what Ryan did here. And he hits it on the last pass. So Good for you. That was probably, sweating a little bit. I was sweating a little bit too, because I wanted to see it happen, but it should have been more, right? Smith-Marset, giving that ball away there, Justin Fields would have been able to have a chance to add to that total at the end there. The Bears offense is it's tough. It's a tough bet right now. Like it's, things it's almost there, but it's just until you actually get some evidence this is going to happen and happen consistently, it's tough to bet it, but the lines are reflecting that. And so they're very enticing because they're low. The numbers for Fields have been really low. And again, I did quite well on Thursday by betting having some confidence in the Bears to put up not terrible numbers, and that paid off. And so that turned out to be a good way to go for that passing offense. But what do you think's happening in LA with Cam Akers? And what do you think the most likely outcome is for this backfield going forward? Like, do you think that Daryl Henderson's now going to be a viable running back 2 for the rest of the season?
It's a complicated thing. So I don't see what it is with Akers other than him being frustrated with his role and McVay pushing back, because they're talking about trading him now, so it doesn't seem like it's an injury thing. It doesn't seem like it's a discipline, like a league discipline thing. It just seems like him and McVay are going at it. And I would guess it's because of his usage, because we kind of saw him spike. I think it was week 3. He jumped up ahead of Henderson in the snaps, and we were kind of like, okay, Henderson or Akers is coming. He's going to take over this backfield. And then it kind of flipped. And so I wonder if they just don't think he's good and he's angry about it. And so he wants to trade. I don't know who's going to trade for him, first of all. If you trade a low pick, sure. But I don't know how many teams want to trade for a guy averaging like 3 yards a carry or whatever he's getting. So that's one roadblock. As far as Henderson, if this offense looked like last year, I'd be all on board. Henderson was like an RB1 in this offense last year, but their offensive line looks a lot worse without Andrew Whitworth. Just the offense in general looks pretty bad. So that worries me with Henderson. And we know that the Rams will go out and get people. They're not afraid of making midseason trades or free agent signings. I would be shocked if they trust Henderson to stay healthy and they're just going to roll with him by himself all year. So Maybe Kyron Williams comes back, but he was a rookie late round pick who they like, but he's been hurt a couple times already. Malcolm Brown isn't the answer. Like maybe they roll with Henderson, but I just can't imagine they trust him to stay healthy. So I guess that's a long way of saying I don't know if they're going to be able to trade Akers. And then if they do, I still think they're getting somebody somewhere. Like I think we got a few weeks for Daryl Henderson here where he's a RB2. Maybe the offense wakes up and he's better, but I would imagine there's more competition at some point.
Yeah, tough spot for Akers. I mean, coming off that injury, hasn't been a good football player, but that's understandable. I mean, that year one coming off an injury, but who knows what the full story is, but clearly, he's not happy, and clearly the Rams aren't happy either, and sounds like a bad situation. But what are the other league actionable news things have happened that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so I'm keeping my eye on this Giants passing offense with Wandale Robinson coming back. I know going to the Giants passing offense might sound a little odd because it's not the greatest, but they've got a ton of injuries at receiver. Galladay's out this week. Kadarius Toney, I think he has 2 hamstring injuries now, so he's out. They lost Sterling Shepard. They have nobody at receiver, and Wandale Robinson is active this week. It's his first return since week 1. He's a rookie who they seem to want to hand the job to from the very start, which is not something that rookie receivers generally get. And it's a new coaching staff. So I think they really like Wandale Robinson. So if you have an extra spot on your bench, if he's out there in leagues, I would throw him on there before these games because he could get a lot of volume. They just have nobody at wide receiver unless you count Saquon Barkley. So there's just not much there. I think he's looking like really good. We just got to see how healthy he is, but I wouldn't put him in a normal lineup. He could be like a DFS play if you're going for an under the radar option. But I just really got my eye on Wandale Robinson and see if he can kind of take over this role that we've been hoping either him or Toney could get at some point.
All right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
We are into the bye weeks. And so that may be pushing people to have to make some plays that they're not maybe always comfortable with. Let's see. You've got the Lions, the Texans, the Raiders, and the Titans on bye. So, maybe not the most fantasy players in that, but you may be looking for TJ Hawkinson replacement at tight end. You may be looking for some running back dart throws if you're a Derrick Henry owner. So, any sort of players to think about in terms of start sits that have favorable options that are normally bench plays, or maybe guys that you can pick up right at the last minute here to plug in your lineup?
Yeah, let's see. This is a couple unexciting wide receivers here. We've got, we'll start out with Zay Jones. I know that's not a name that excites anyone, but Marvin Jones is out this week. Jones has actually been getting a lot of targets. He had 8 targets last game. It wasn't very productive, but I think they're going to have to throw the ball against Indianapolis. That's a pretty good run defense. I think Zay Jones he's been getting a lot of targets. So if you need a desperation start, he's in play. Rondelle Moore, like I mentioned before, I think he's probably picked up in most leagues, but he really looked encouraging last week, took over for Dortch, ran 41 out of possible 45 routes. So he's on the field a ton. We also have Alex Pierce against the Jaguars. His role's been going up every week. So those are some of the receiving options. The receiver's a little easier this week than the other positions. Tight end, it's just the same tight end streamers every week. Honestly, it's like Evan Ingram, who's available in most leagues, and Tyler Conklin, and they're not super exciting, but they're there. I think they're solid plays this week, but let me find some running backs real quick. But if you have some questions on any of those players, let me know.
No, that sounds good. I mean, I'm thinking, quarterbacks with those guys sitting, how many people are playing Derek Carr, Jared Goff?
Yeah.
Probably not a ton, right? Unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. But if you're in a 2-quarterback league, all the quarterbacks are rostered, right? So it's this isn't really a big quarterback streamer week, in my opinion, unless you're still hurting after some of these quarterback injuries. Maybe there's some of that out there, but I don't know. That feels like everything is kind of been picked up. Justin Fields may have been the best streamer play, and he's already played, right? I don't know who's maybe out there that you feel good about. Quarterback.
Yeah, we talked on the podcast about how rough it is this week. So it would have been Geno Smith, but he's up to 71% rostered now. So it kind of leaves Jimmy G against the Falcons. You're basically just hoping that Atlanta puts up some points and San Francisco has to pass the ball. But I mean, that's a good spot. Like Atlanta's not a good defense. That is a good offense in general. You just got to hope it's not 45 rushes from San Francisco. And then, I mean, it's ugly, man. It's like Jacoby Brissett. He's another option. Like he's been shockingly good this year. Like he's not going to put up 400 yards for you, but you'll probably get that 18 points you kind of want out of a streamer. So I don't know. They're implied a lot of points just looking at the spread. So it's kind of a nice spot at home for Brissett. But yeah, quarterback is rough right now. Like our names on the streamer list were Jimmy G, Brissett, Justin Fields, and Marcus Mariota, who's going against San Francisco. It's just because he runs the ball. So I think Jimmy G is probably what you're looking at. I know in my home league, people are starting to drop some of their second quarterbacks. So keep an eye out on that. Like I desperately need one, and someone dropped Carr because he's on a bye this week. So I'm going to be putting in a bid for him for next week because I'm in a rough spot. So now's the time to look for those moves, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Like bye weeks come around and people start drop. They have to make some concessions where, there's just, hey, I gotta pick up this guy to make a viable lineup. So they drop a good defense that's on a bye. They drop they drop some guy that they probably shouldn't have had roster to begin with, or second quarterback, whatever it is. And there's opportunities to improve your team. So if you've been playing your free agent acquisition budget well, and your waivers well, like you can improve your team here through the bye weeks because people are just trying to fill viable lineups. So
yeah. And then at running back, I mean, obviously, Benjamin's probably rostered pretty highly now, but he's an automatic start if he's still out there, or if you picked him up, he's in a good spot. But some other kind of waiver wire type players, just the Indianapolis backfield, no Jonathan Taylor or Nyheim Hines this week. So last week when it was like that, it was basically Deion Jackson and Philip Lindsay splitting work. I know it's not, you don't feel great starting either of those guys, but those are their two options. They're home against Jacksonville. Like I think they're both kind of RB 30, 35 range. So you could start Deion Jackson or Philip Lindsay if you're desperate. And then Mike Boone for Denver, secondary option, but Melvin Gordon's been a little banged up, and they play the Chargers, who are pretty bad against the run. So those are some of the names might be out there in some leagues that you could pick up last minute.
Perfect. All right, man. Well, we'll get out of here unless you got any final thoughts about this week.
No, I think that's about it. It's rough at running back when the bye weeks start hitting, especially how rough it's been this year. So I kind of, like I say every week, I think if you got one good running back and you can piece together your RB2, you're probably in pretty good shape. So don't get too discouraged if you're starting Deion Jackson as your RB2, because it happens.
I'm just piecing together all running backs at this point. I got like 3 RB2s I'm throwing at it. Maybe, 3 RB2s, maybe that'll equal 1 RB1. We'll see what happens. But
exactly.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And just, keep on grinding out on this stuff. I think overall, we've been doing pretty well overall, maybe not knocking it out of the park, but singles and doubles, and overall at the end of the day that adds up. So check back in with us next week, and we'll see if we can't keep that train going. See you guys.